On this note, at this point, I'd like to tell you the love story of Patrick and Ashley. And the crowd said, "Aww." So the Patrick and Ashley story starts in October of 2016 with the two of them in the same gym class. However, it was because of Ashley's friendship with groomsman Michael that she actually met Patrick. You see, Michael's friends happened to be friends with Patrick, and so by the transitive property, Ashley and Patrick got to meet. So just what did Ashley think of Patrick when they first met?
I was really intimidated, honestly, because he was this really tall guy, and I sort of felt like a little giddy because I'm like, oh, he's really cute.
Now, despite meeting and hanging with their friends group, nothing really came of the meeting until an accidental first date on January 15th of 2017. Now, that fateful evening, a group of about 10 of them were supposed to go bowling and then a movie. But
all of them bailed. Every single one of them bailed.
Okay, sure, they all bailed.
I think for a couple people it was on purpose, but I also think it was fate because there were a couple people that got food poisoning. So I think it was honestly like God's plan.
All right, so fair enough. But since none of the others showed up, a change of plans was in order. Patrick suggested that the two of them get dinner at Bravo's and see a movie instead. More specifically, a scary movie. A very, very, very scary movie. But more on that later. See, during dinner, they had had so much food, yet they didn't eat. Instead, they just talked and talked about their favorite foods, video games, even an in-depth conversation about Ashley's conquest as Bambi's killer. Now, 2 hours passed, and fortunately for Ashley, they missed the last showing of Bye Bye Man. In that same respect, Patrick may have just been a little bit bummed because
my reasoning for wanting to go to a horror movie in the first place is so that we would be a little frightened and then we would hold hands, but that didn't really work out.
All right, so instead they decided to see Passengers. And while this wasn't a scary movie, Patrick still tried to use the movie to his advantage.
He left his hand out on the side of the chair with the palm of his hand facing outwards, sort of gesturing that he wanted to hold my hand. And I ended up grabbing his hand halfway through the movie.
So the movie ends, they walk out. And it's at this point that Ashley meets Patrick's dad for the first time. Remember, this was supposed to be a larger gathering of friends. But when Patrick's dad met up with them, it was just the two of them, and he quickly figured out that this was a date. Patrick may have gotten in trouble for that. Oops. Well, anyway, as Patrick leaves, Ashley meets up with her parents again at the bowling alley, talking nonstop about the date and even about holding hands. She is on cloud 9, and her mom couldn't help but take her picture. Now, when they returned to school,
we were being harassed by them. They were really wanting us to be a thing, but it felt nice that our friends saw the potential for our relationship and were encouraging that.
All right, so at this point, our couple is hanging out a lot, getting to know each other, but it's on January 28th when things take a positive turn. Patrick had been over at Ashley's house, and when it was time for them to go home, Ashley's dad drove them so he could get home and Ashley could say bye. As Ashley gave Patrick a hug goodbye, she looked at him and just flat out asked.
I looked at him and I looked up at him. I'm like, okay, what are we?
All right, so what exactly are we? And it was in that moment that Patrick asked her to be his girlfriend, and of course, she said yes. In fact, it was quite magical.
There was no music, but the stars were beautiful, so we were just dancing in front of the car with the truck lights on. And I didn't think of it for a minute with how awkward my dad might feel. Got back in the car and he was like, what the heck are you doing? You made me so uncomfortable. He's like, I called your mother, I had no idea what to do.
So apparently that kiss that we saw in the video was not the only awkward moment for Jeremy. It's all right. I'm sure he wouldn't have it any other way now. Okay, so now that we're official, we can fast forward a little bit to March 25th. Patrick and Ashley are at their friend Brett's house, and they were watching a movie in the backyard. Now, the movie ends, and as couples often do, they went for a walk. At some point, they came across a really large grouping of frogs. Now, after poking them and staring at the frogs for quite a bit,
we just kind of stood there and looked at each other, and then I kind of motioned and went in for a kiss, and it just happened.
Way to go, Patrick! Now, this happened to be Ashley's first kiss. So just what went through her mind in that moment?
Oh my gosh, his lips are so soft.
I'll take your word for it. Now, dates are nice, and of course, the first kiss is always special. But eventually, someone comes up with the courage to say those 3 special words. Now, while there is some possible confusion over when this first happened, we're going to focus on the time that Patrick said it for the first time over FaceTime. Now, for Ashley, that seemed a little weird, all right? It was like in person, but it wasn't in person. So for her, she needed to wait to see him and be in front of him to say it back.
It felt very empowering, and when I said it, it felt so real. Like, I love him, and I really love him.
Patrick and Ashley really are made for each other. They are both so selfless and willing to put the needs of the others above their own. So many of their core values and beliefs are just truly shared.
We don't have to have a specific conversation about something because we know that the other person's already going to feel the same way.
Now, eventually the dating does lead to conversations about marriage. Now, in the same respect, they did have some of these types of conversations during high school, but more about the idea of being open to marriage and kids and what the future held. But it was after high school and with Ashley off at Drexel that, well...
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest, I was very naggy. I was nagging him about it.
She was just naggy. But in fairness to Ashley, there was just so much going on in their life that she felt lost at times. They were so close in high school that she was searching for a way to bring that closeness back. Patrick starts to get the hint, and he looks at rings. But nothing he found in the stores matched her personality. The jewelry store, Jared, however, had a way to design a custom ring online, and so Patrick gave it a shot. And before he knew it, he had designed the perfect ring for Ashley. But then something happens. The day after Thanksgiving in 2019, he's playing paintball with his buddies. And when you're playing paintball with your buddies, you do just about anything to win, including climbing up on the only elevated spot to get a better angle. However,
the dirt under me gave way, and I fell 35 feet, and I broke both of my feet.
And his legs. Now, this accident was a turning point, as Patrick had been preparing to join the Army, but was no longer eligible. While he may have been preparing to propose, the accident caused a delay. Then, a few months later, Patrick moves in with Ashley's parents. And while this has helped to create an incredible bond with his now in-laws, it has also caused a delay in the proposing. However, as we know, those delays wouldn't continue forever, but there would be one more. You see, our couple went on a trip to Las Vegas, and Patrick had planned to propose during dinner at the Strat. For those of you that don't know, the Strat is a really high restaurant that spins at the top. As they're going up the elevator, Patrick saw Ashley's face and immediately realized he needed to pick a different night to propose. So, next night, June 20th, 2020, after spending the day walking around, looking at the lights and the architecture, and getting some pictures with what we'll call interesting ladies, Ashley and Patrick went to Sushi Samba for dinner. Now, earlier in the day, Patrick had tied the ring to a mast to make sure that it didn't get lost or stolen.
When we were at dinner, I stepped aside, made sure I had the ring, and I took it off the mask and put it in my pocket.
I felt a little weird. I'm like, is he having stomach issues? Because he ran to the bathroom at dinner.
right after dinner, we spontaneously went to do a gondola ride.
The line was a little long. It was like 11:30-ish at night, and we were waiting in line.
I told her I needed to go make sure that they had our tickets.
And I'm like, what? I have the tickets in my hand right now. We're waiting in line.
So I went and told them that I was going to propose, and they put 4 stars on our tickets.
And I'm like, those weren't there before. But I was very excited for the gondola ride because they have someone on there and they sing and it's like really beautiful. So I remember getting on, and everyone who took the ticket made sure to look at the ticket very intently. So I'm like, okay, those 4 stars must mean something. So we got on the ride, and then we keep going, and all of a sudden the man pulls the boat off to the side, and there's this woman with a camera, and she's ready to like shoot pictures of us. And I'm like, what is going on? And he stands up.
I was very concerned that I was going to tip the boat over and drop the ring in the water. Thankfully, I didn't.
And he gets down on the ground in front of me, and he has the ring, and he says, Ashley Renee Nisley, will you marry me? I said, yes.
And that yes brings us to this moment, the moment and the marriage of Mr. and Mrs. Patrick and Ashley McConnell. And at this point, I'd like to invite our newlyweds out to the dance for their first dance as husband and wife.